Welcome back. Hope you're all having a great day. We are now on to episode 2 of Book Talk. This is fantastic. So, I have decided today on Book Talk, we're going to talk about probably, I wouldn't go as far as to say she's like nearly one of the queens of YA fantasy. Yeah, can you guess who it is? I'll give you a hint. It's in the title. Sarah J Maas. She has literally taken YA fantasy by a storm, especially this year, I think. I've seen a lot of her books now kind of everywhere along the Bookstagram space. Don't get me wrong. Her career has been phenomenal over the last 10 years. She's really grown her name and her brand. But I really think this year, with the release of Crescent City, which is... I really think it really skyrocketed her into the absolute stratosphere as far as big names within the YA fantasy book space area. So, why this video is Book Talk, my opinions on why I believe Sarah J Maas has really cornered a market that is kind of, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's saturated, but it's really well occupied at the moment with lots of really great books, really great authors, and just really great storylines. Let's start. So Sarah J Maas's first series that she came out with was the Throne of Glass series. For most people, they've read it. For those of you who haven't, this book is about Selena Sardothian. I don't know. So this is one reason why Sarah J Maas is amazing. She is able to create her own languages. She creates her own names. She creates her own worlds, basically. She starts from scratch and creates the most phenomenal words, names, languages, everything. Like, it's amazing. Each book has a different, each book's a different world, obviously. So this book here, Throne of Glass, there's 7 books in the series, and she even has maps at the front which show people the world that she has created. And I think for me, that's something that I really like. It's so creative. She's such a creative person and author. And I think that's why people keep coming back to her and keep reading all of her books, because they know when they're reading her books, they're really reading a dystopian fantasy novel that's unlike anything out there. She's so great. She's so great at creating worlds. It's amazing. It is so amazing. So this book here is about Selena, who is chosen. She's taken from the salt mines where she's been left as a prisoner. Whereas most people are being left as prisoners in salt mines. Their kingdoms are being taken over and overthrown. And so Selena then gets chosen by the prince to be her champion. So the king is running a competition where all nobility get to choose a thief, criminal, crook, all the lowlives, assassins. They get to choose them to be to compete in a competition which the king runs. And whoever wins this competition gets to become the king's champion. And the king's champion will then do dirty deeds that the king decides. And so Selena views that as her way, her ticket out of the salt mines and her ticket to save her people and get back to her family. Which actually, I should rephrase that, because Selena is actually an orphan. But she was an orphan who was taken, she was found on a beach, trained to be an assassin. And she wants to get back to her home. So her home is a castle. Yeah, that's pretty exciting. So Selena basically, she gets chosen by Prince Dorian. They take her back to the city's capital. They live within the Throne of Glass, because the castle's made of glass, which is why it's called Throne of Glass. And then Selena competes with all these other people, all these other champions, to become the #1 king champion. So basically in the first book, she kind of falls in love with Captain Westfall, which is Prince Dorian's friend, and Captain Westfall trains her, which is really, really sweet. But yeah, so she's very timid and shy in this book. Well, I wouldn't say timid and shy. She's unsure of herself. She's trying to find a way out of her situation, and she believes the only way out is to win the competition. So she'll stop at nothing in order to win. So this is the first book in the Throne of Glass series, which is wildly popular, wildly famous, and it's just, yeah, it's amazing. 7 books in that series. So, and that's the other thing I really like about Sarah. She produces series that are really long, and I find that's great because when you get involved into a character, into their life and their world, it's so annoying to stop after 3 books because you're like, I've just invested hours of my life, my emotions into this book, and it's just stopped. Like it's like, what? But yeah, so that's the first book she ever wrote. The first series that she wrote, sorry. Well, that is also the first book. So the next book we have is this one, A Court of Thorns and Roses, which these are the new covers you might see out right now. They're both the same book, just new covers. A Court of Thorns and Roses is about Feyre, and Feyre is a human living on the border between the human and Fey lands, and her family is really, 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 really poor. And their only way to get food is for Feyre to go out and hunt. And she goes out and hunts and accidentally kills a wolf who turns out to be a Fey. A higher Fey, in fact. And so then Tamlin comes across the border, collects Feyre, takes her over, and he says, as part of the treaty's arrangement, you must now stay with me. So, wow, like, whoa. We're just already like, whoa. So she's just taken from her home, her family, and she gives all that up to protect them and keep them safe, and goes across the wall to live as Tamlin's prisoner. Once she's across the wall, she actually finds the Fae are just it's a completely different world, obviously. But yeah, so in the first book, we find her and Tamlin, they get closer and closer, but there's something wrong with Tamlin and the Spring Court. They're all wearing face masks, and they've been stuck like that for 50 years. And there's a bad energy going on within the Fae world, and there's lots of horrible creatures, and it's just amazing. So in this book again, there is another map, which I will show you. So we have a whole new world. Here, everyone says, thank Cauldron, pray to Mother Cauldron. So she's created her new way of saying, oh my God, it's Cauldron. Like the Cauldron is a god. I love it. And I love the fact that as well as all of this, when you go to the back page, when you come here to the back page, here we go. We have a pronunciation guide. So not only does she create her own words, she tells you how to pronounce them. I love it. It's amazing. It's fantastic. I think this one has one too. I'm sure this one has one. Oh, maybe not. Okay, this one doesn't have a pronunciation guide, but the Court of Thorns and Roses does. So basically, so this is the first book. There is 3 books plus a novelette in this series. There is a new book being released in January of 2021, but it's going to be following different characters. Obviously, the main character, Feyre, will still be featured in this new book, but it's going to be following her sister. And so that's going to be really interesting. As I said to you, I'm really excited for that one. I think this is probably one of my favorite of all time series. It's very easy to read. It's not too violent. Well, obviously I'm really talking about the first book right now, but the whole series isn't too violent, but it is also very, you just get so involved. There is so much inner workings of her world here. It's amazing. There is so much going on. She constantly leaves you guessing. And I think for me, that's something I really like about reading in my YA novels. I don't want predictability. And with her books, I find I never predict what's going on. I'm always like, every time I turn the page. And I find that amazing. So, I called it Thorns and Roses. Now, we get on to this series here. This series changed my world. Oh my God. This is the first book, which she just released. It was March of this year. And Sarah said actually on her website that this book is something she has been typing up in her mind for the last 10 years. She's been working on this book, which is amazing. Like, can you imagine sitting there, having these characters in your head, knowing what you want to talk about, and you're still writing these books at the same time? Like, it's just phenomenal. The woman is a genius. I'm telling you now. And so she eventually wrote it up, published it, and it's just been a top novel. This book's probably more of a upper end YA fantasy, just because there's a lot more sexual references, drug references within the novel. And so I think that's probably why it's probably meant for more of an older audience. In saying all that, it still is within the fantasy bracket, and it's all fiction, obviously. So, I love this book so much. I found it just to be, wow. I read it within like 2 days, and it's 800 pages, so that's fair effort. But so this book here is about Bryce, who is I don't even know what to call her. She's kind of like a half fae, half human. This is not set on planet Earth. This is set on a completely different planet. And people breathe ether on this planet, which is really cool. But Bryce's skin is gold. It's flecked gold, which is pretty awesome. And she has a best friend. Her name's Danica. And Danica is the pack leader of the Crescent Moon Pack, I believe. And so what happens is one night, Bryce goes out, gets really, really drunk, has a good time, has a party, comes back and finds Danica and her pack completely butchered in their house. And so that sets off kind of a trail of who did this to her. And a lot of people were suspecting that Danica did this to herself and killed her own pack. And so this book is basically just about Bryce finding out who killed Danica. And I have to honestly say, when Danica died, I had tears. I had actual tears. She built it up in such a way. She managed to, within 100 pages, explain a lifetime of friendship that was so close that when she died, you felt like your own best friend died. Amazing. So unlike the other books, this one here does not. Oh, it does have a map. It has a map of Crescent City. Yep. And I don't think it has a pronunciation guide. I'll just double check. No. There's no pronunciation guide, but this one, it didn't really have as hard new words as what the other books have had. So the first book, it was filled with so much. It was great. It did leave on I wouldn't say it left on a cliffhanger, but it left on a bit of a silent, another book's coming, another book's in the works. So this shows you kind of Sarah's progression as her life as an author has kind of grown. So these are her 3 main series. Obviously, this is the first series, the second series, and the third series. There is 3 books in the works for this series. This series, there plans to be about 7. And this series is finished, but she may come back to write some more. There is also some talks that she might cross over between the worlds, which would be awesome. And so for me, I think Sarah J Maas, the reasons why I really am drawn to her books is, as I said, 1, she creates her own worlds, and they're just phenomenal because they're from literally the soil on the ground all the way to the top of a castle point. Everything is thought out, everything has detail, everything is well placed, and you understand everything. She describes it all. Number 2 point is I love the way she creates her own name, so everything is really, it's unique to her. Like, you're not going to read a book with a name in it and think and be reminded of another book. They're all really unique to her worlds. And thirdly is because her books follow such different themes, such different characters, and such different endings. And for me, I mean, I have not read a book about an assassin. And that's what I really find really, really, really awesome, is that it's just so different to what's out on the market. So you know you're reading a unique story. And finally, my final point is that she just has a way of drawing you in. She has a way of really capturing your attention and holding it for the whole 800 pages. Don't get me wrong, 800 pages is a long time to hold someone's attention. And I just think it shows you how phenomenal she is, that she's able to keep your attention for 800 pages. Like, there's not even a few pages where you're like, ugh, fast forward, like I'm bored. None. Like, it's fantastic. So if you haven't already, I highly recommend you grab yourself a copy of any one of her series. They're fantastic if you are a YA fantasy lover or if you're just a fantasy lover. And I hope you can join the rest of us that are really big Sarah J Maas fans and understand why we are the way we are.